Now that we have gone ahead and gotten all of our polygon data into raster data, and we've also created our slope data, we can now start to create our reclassifier data to get prepped for our raster calculator. So we need to actually reclassify 4 data sets. So I'm going to search for the Reclassify tool. We want the spatial analyst, and I'm going to add that, you guessed it, 4 times. So what are our 4 data sets we have to reclassify? 2 of them we just put into our raster data set, the land ownership and the trails. 1 of them we created with the slope. The last one we'll have to add in is already a raster data set. It is our land cover data. So I'm going to go ahead and make that the input to our first Reclassify tool as the input raster. And then we're going to go ahead and start the reclassification process. This is going to look a lot like, scooch this over, our analysis for site suitability. So to do that, I started to create a criteria and rating table just like we use for site suitability. So these are each of our criteria, each of our inputs, and how I'm classifying them in terms of my most preferred hiking land use, most preferred to least preferred, and then areas I want to exclude. We actually don't want to exclude no data. I'm going to make that 1. Now you'll notice that I'm giving no data values for all of these. That will make sure that we don't have any blanks on our map, and the hiker, can actually hike across the county, and it won't mess up with our analysis. So most preferred to least preferred in terms of our land cover, what I'd like to walk through, what I would completely like to avoid, I don't want to get my feet wet, so I'm going to avoid any open water and try to avoid walking through some of the high density developed areas and some of our wetlands. Just again, don't want wet feet. So I'm going to move this to my other window, other screen, so I can keep track of my preferences. But I'm going to change, so what I'm going to do here is these are all our land classes, and I'm going to rank them 0 to 4 based on that table. Let me do that. So we can see here that I've gone ahead and reclassified all the values. You always want to double check to make sure you got everything, because otherwise your whole analysis will be messed up. We do want to make sure we give the data no value, or the new value as 1, and sometimes that will change a lot. The other thing I'd recommend is after you change your file name from land cover, do a quick scan, because I've had sometimes where it changes the values while I'm doing this. So a quick scan, and I have 0. The one I want to avoid is that open water. So favorable to least favorable. Okay, so then I'll go ahead and click OK, and we can run that. While that's running, we can scooch it out of the way and get started. Oh, good. Okay. Get started on reclassifying our public land ownership. So that again will be our input raster. Get rid of this. We'll pull up our reclassify window. For this one, we'll change it from value to ownership. And click on unique to get it all to populate. All right, so this one, again, we're going to refer to my table that I made in terms of what I want to exclude, low preference, least preferred. For this one, for no data, I'm going to set it in for low preference because there's a lot of land that's classified as no data. We can actually go to the map and look at that. I'll come back in a second. I have to turn this stuff off. Yeah, let me turn this off. So there's all this land here that's unclassified, and if you look carefully, if we were to leave it like that, I wouldn't be able to walk across the county because there's no polygons. I'm sorry, there's no grid cells joining all the way across the county. So I have to make sure that I tell it anything that has no data, I give a value to. So I'm ranking it as a 1 or a 2. I'll check in a second. What am I ranking it as? A 2, low preference. Mostly because as you start to get further west, it turns into some of the developed areas. But I do think, well, yeah, we're just going to leave it like that because I think it's mostly developed areas. Just going to leave it as a 2 for now. Okay, so let me get to that ranking. All right, so I went through and reclassified everything, excluded the areas I want to exclude, and now is that important part of making sure I change no data. In this instance, I'm using it as a 2, so it stayed there. So now I'm going to rename my folder, or rename my output file. Double check after I rename it that everything stays, and click OK. Then we'll run this. And we'll bring, after these are done, we can start loading this one to the display. Maybe? Yeah. Nope. Oh, didn't like that. Add that to display. We'll add this one to the display. Now's a good time to save everything. And we can see here we have our public land reclassified. So this is important. We're seeing that all of those areas that are ranked as no data now have this peach color. Actually, we can see as it scrolls across, it'll say it. All the way. Other federal. Ugh. Just trust me, it's there. Or it's not. That's fine. Well, it's ranked as 2. We could change these values. Let's change how they're displayed. Oh, that's not what we wanted. Yeah, I guess it'll work. So we can see high preference, and this is alarming though, so let's just switch to blue, and we'll reverse it. Okay, so make this smaller, make this smaller. We're seeing areas we prefer in the dark blue to areas that we really want to avoid in the white. Okay, so just basic idea there. And then the land cover, public land cover reclass. Oh, that's why, because it wasn't in there. Anyway, we can do the same here if we wanted to change those values, but for now, we will just leave it as that. So this is, you're noticing that we took off that mask, so it's not exactly matching the county, but we can click our end data if we wanted to. All right, so next up we have to reclassify the last 2. So with the trails, raster data, we either want it to be a trail or not a trail. So these are all fine. It's just the way that we chose to classify our data. You could go through and rank them if you wanted to, like if you didn't want to be on a road or something, but we're going to just say these are all great. Would love to be on any sort of trail, so I'm not anywhere I shouldn't be. And then this is the important one, the no data, the no trails, that will still, that's our least preferred, but it's still an option. So we want to make sure that we have that in there. And click OK. Go ahead and run that one. And while we're doing that, we'll get the slope set up. See, this is what's nice about Pro is you can do 2 things at once. Sometimes. Input raster. Open that up. So right now, we've got a whole bunch of classes for our slope. You can, so I'm not going to put too much thought into this. I basically just want 4 classes. So I'm just letting you use the equal interval classification to create those 4 classes. And then I can reverse my new values. My preference is the lower elevation. These may be slightly different on my table, but that's okay. Lower elevation, and then for the ones with no data, I think we can leave this one no data because everywhere has a slope. Oops, sorry, it's got in my way. And we'll rename that. Okay, it might be too long. Go ahead, click run. And once that is done, we'll start adding these to the display, and we'll save our model and save our project. All right, here we're looking at slope. Again, no, that's weird that the no data is that purple, but I guess it's, oh no, it's not. There's this other blue. So since we gave that no data a value, that's why I put it in there. The other one we want to look at is the trails. Oh, let's turn this off so you can see it a little bit better. We can, what do we want to do? We want to add unlisted values. Why is it not? See what's nice about using a model is you can go back and double check what happened here. So we should have this no data be 1. Okay, so I opened up the attribute table and I see the value 1 and 4. So I'm going to go over to my symbology here and change unique values, go from type to value. And we'll see 1 and 4. And now I'm really wishing I had, whoops, found another mask, but that's okay. Where's my bookmark? That's okay. Let's set a bookmark over here. Okay, so now that I've done all this data preparation, we can finally get to that raster calculator.